Welcome to the Love of the Star podcast. I'm Bobby Belt, Dallas Cowboys insider for 105 through the Fan in Dallas, joined as always by former NFL scout Brian Broaddus. He's also a Super Bowl winner from those scout days. And now he is the co-host of the G-Bag Nation, 2 to 7 p.m. Central, Monday through Friday on 105 through the Fan in Dallas. And he is also the pre- and post-game co-host on the Dallas Cowboys radio network. Brian Broaddus, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Robert. Happy Friday to you as we tape this show. But yeah, looking forward to the weekend. And we're drawing ever closer to getting ready for Oxnard. It was funny, we had our scout dinner, our draft show dinner last night. We really missed you. I know you had other commitments that you had to make.
People are always just pulling me in every different direction.
You missed a good one last night. The dinner was excellent. D. Lincoln is excellent meal there at the Star for the steaks and the lobster and everything. And it was on Jerry Jones, which made it even better for all of us. But the conversations last night at the table were very much about what you would expect, things with the Cowboys, players, who do you think, do you feel like the running back room is good enough? All these things are kind of weighing on all our minds. I'm sure it's weighing on Cowboy fans' minds as well, do we have enough at certain positions? Are positions going to be good enough? And so, yeah, it's drawing close, though. Once we figured out we get past 4th of July, you now have those legitimate conversations of I was always used to get the emails from Mike McCord, who is the equipment man for the Cowboys. And he would tell you, okay, the first truck is going on July 15th, the second truck is going on July 18th, have all your gear ready, and once you got to and past 4th of July,
Red is going to be driving those trucks.
What's that?
Red will be driving those trucks.
Red is a great guy. So if you're out there, we've talked about how much we love training camp, and if you want to come out and see us at the Rudder Room when we're out there, you'll meet Red. You will get to meet the guy who gets logistically, his company does all the stuff of getting the Cowboys to.
He's an awesome dude.
He is a wizard with that, and a super, super nice guy. But again, the conversations are about the team, and we can't get away from that. We can't get away from where this team is at right now.
Yeah, and with that, we're going to take a little bit of inventory on the Cowboys starting lineups as they head into training camp. I mean, this is honestly, I don't know, Brian. I think this is the first show we've done since probably about a year. This is usually the time it happens where you reach a point where it's like, there's no more practices. Yeah. There's not been a signing. There's not been a development here, whatever else. And so this is the chance for us to kind of sit down and, hey, let's tackle some of these 10,000-foot view topics. And one of them is going to be this idea of what jobs are we actually going to be looking at that are open for competition when we get to training camp, kind of to figure out who's locked into place. Who do we think that's a job, that's theirs, it's not even a question, versus where we might see some actual competition. So let's start out on the offensive side of the ball. We'll just go position by position. Sure. Quarterback, we don't think Trey Lance is pushing Dak Prescott quite yet, right?
No, but an interesting training camp. We got to learn about Trey Lance, and that's where the quarterback. I've said it a bunch, and I know fans out there are probably thinking the same thing. Don't need to see any Cooper Rush reps. Need to see a lot of Trey Lance reps, and every rep that's not a Dak Prescott rep needs to be a Trey Lance rep.
Do you think that Trey Lance will be the player that while you're in Oxnard, like the individual player you spend the most time watching?
Boy, that is a really good question. And I would have to believe yes.
I think he's going to be for me.
It's going to be the hardest discussion for your show from 5:30 to 10, my show from 2 to 7. There is going to be a lot of scrutiny. There is going to be a lot of charting of passes. There are going to be Todd Archer. He was 10 of 12 today and 7 on 7. Bobby Belt is going to be talking about Trey Lance's arm strength looked adequate in some of the outs that he threw. There is going to be a lot of quarterback evaluation, right or wrong. But this is one of the areas that needs to, I would have to say the next group, I think whatever happens at left tackle is going to be a highly scrutinized position as well.
Let's jump right to the offensive line then, because like I said, quarterback, we know quarterback's in place. On the offensive line, the only things I think are set in stone right now, Brian, are your left guard is Tyler Smith. Yeah. Your right guard is Zach Martin. Your right tackle is Terrence Steele. I think those jobs are taken. Yeah. The competition will be at center and at left tackle. Obviously, left tackle, we're looking at probably Edoga and Tyler Guyton. Maybe Awesome Richards gets some talk there. Center is going to be more Bass, Hoffman, Cooper Beebe. That's going to be kind of where that conversation goes. If you had to say one of those two positions, center or left tackle, is more likely, let's say if I told you a rookie will be starting at only one of those positions and they'll have a veteran at the other, which one is more likely to have the rookie starting at it? Guyton beating out Edoga at left tackle or Beebe winning out against the other centers?
My gut feeling tells me it's going to be the left tackle.
I agree, because I think the offensive line coach really likes the center you have there right now.
You did. There's an old show, crusty guy like me, and there's some people out there that are my age that listen to our program, and thank you for doing that. There was a show called Perry Mason. He was a famous lawyer, trial lawyer. Perry Mason never asked a question he didn't already know the answer to.
Yeah.
You just pulled a Perry Mason on me is what you did.
I mean.
You knew the answer. You knew the answer. I think Dallas Cowboy fans know the answer. I think the realization now is we are starting to really grasp, will Mike Solari allow two rookie starters on the offensive line?
Will he allow one? He might not.
He might not. See, I have a feeling that naturally Guyton will beat out the others. But there's such love, and you pointed it out on this program many, many shows ago. The love that Mike Solari has for Brock Hoffman. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and I mean, on you for doing that, because honestly, that's where we're at right now.
I'll be honest. I think left tackle's got a better chance to start the rookie at it.
Yeah.
But I think the rookie at center, Beebe, is more ready to play. It's just they feel like I think they feel better about the option, the veteran option that's there, than potentially Edoga. Edoga fell out of some favor after that Miami game last year when he blew a couple of assignments. That's why you generally want a veteran in there. Don't bust. Don't cause many busts. Don't get my quarterback killed. Don't blow up plays. I can't afford that. I will deal with the talent deficiency for a guy that will know what he's supposed to do. And that's a lot of times how coaches will come at those sort of things. So that's where Edoga, I think, is vulnerable. Edoga's already not the best left tackle, but the other thing is he has issues with busts that are similar to rookies already. So you might as well just say, let's go with Guyton.
I am to the point where it's sad to say this, but you mentioned Awesome Richards. Mm-hmm. And if Awesome Richards was good enough, but he couldn't manage to beat out Edoga, now I have some concerns about Awesome Richards.
Sure. Who to be fair, was a fifth-round pick.
I've already, I know what Matt Will Let's Go is. I know what Ball is. I really had a lot of hope. And maybe this is the training camp that Awesome Richards does progress, that does make okay, you can move on from Edoga. Even though Edoga doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah.
You can move on from Edoga. Edoga is a progress stopper. You need Awesome Richards as the backup tackle. So you've got a first-year tackle and a second-year tackle. But there was some time, you've got to worry a little bit if Awesome Richards wasn't good enough to beat out Edoga.
Yeah, absolutely.
That has to have make you pause a little bit.
Looking, continuing in line over at the tight ends, Jake Ferguson has that job. That's his. He's the starting tight end. That's not a question. I would imagine right now, we've talked about this a little bit, and we'll touch on it really quickly here. In the two tight end packages, is that leaning towards Schoonmaker, or would you lean towards somebody else there right now?
Yeah, I think
I think it defaults to Schoonmaker probably.
Yeah, I think it does default. I think it does default that way. I think it. you look at the tight end situation with with Hendershot. Is Hendershot now a forgotten man?
I think Hendershot is a little bit on the outs.
Yeah, and so where you kind of felt like just watching John Stevens work, and I had a chance to visit with some people last night about John Stevens, and they were really encouraged by him. And
Stevens, Princeton Fant, they like their tight end room.
They do like their tight ends, and they think they're well coached. And
Lunda Wells, he does a great job with those tight ends.
I just worry, man. My love for Schoonmaker, and I don't know what happened to him. I don't know. I mean, I know injury happened to him, but he does not. And I'm kind of hoping this is the same thing that we've seen these tight ends take 2 years, 3 years. Mm-hmm. Dalton Schultz,
Jarwin,
do a lot of dirt on Dalton Schultz. Do a lot of dirt on him to the point where Dalton Schultz blocked me on Twitter. And if I asked Dalton Schultz a question, I'm sure he wouldn't have given me an answer. Mm-hmm. Just because of some critical things that I said about Dalton Schultz. So I wonder if, all the critical comments about Schoonmaker, that he could put it all behind him.
Yeah, because Schultz did not really, and a lot of it was opportunity, but Schultz did not click until year 3.
Yeah.
Martellus Bennett didn't click till later on his career. Anthony Fasano was a guy here who didn't click till later on his career. They've had some of these guys before that have played that same sort of way. So I mean, I think that look, there were also going to be a lot of things that Dallas was going to ask Luke Schoonmaker to do here that he wasn't being asked to do in Michigan. So I feel more optimistic about Schoonmaker right now than I do about, for instance, Jalen Tolbert to be able to eventually click into place. And in fact, let's jump over to receiver now. So we got the tight ends.
Real quick. That's the Chill Boys ballsy take of the day, I think, already.
I'll take it. Chillboys.com, promo code STAR, 15% off. Really. Again, that's how you can support us.
Yeah, that's a ballsy take because there's a lot of people that feel like that Tolbert is the third receiver here. And
that's a job that I think is open. So if we're talking about jobs that are secured, CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, wide receiver 3 for me is a wide open competition right now. It leans. I mean, you got Turpin in there, Tolbert, Jalen Brooks. I know we've given a lot of love to here. There are people who really like Ryan Flournoy and think that Flournoy can eventually be a guy. Some of the guys back behind that were on practice squad last year. I think there are people who like Jalen Cropper Moreno. I think that there's fans of David Durden who's been rehabbing this whole time. I'll ask you this, Brian. We've kind of handicapped the wide receiver 3 position a lot already, so we know it's secured. Let's say disaster scenario. CeeDee Lamb holds out into the regular season.
Okay.
Who are we already have talked about who are the leaders in the clubhouse to be the 2 other receivers with Cooks, do you think?
Well, Ferguson's going to be your second primary catcher. So that
sure, but as 3 receiver packages.
Right. That gives me a little hope.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to lean very heavily on Cooks. And then you're going to, I think that Brooks. Now, Aisha Morrison made a good point last night on the thing. There were a lot of times where Tolbert was open and did not get a look. And that's, Dak, primary read CD, Ferguson, one of those other things, Cooks.
I think there's also trust questions there at times.
Trust questions, yeah. Mm-hmm. So to me, I think, and the table thought about this last night, again, the dinner we had with the draft show. The table talked about this as well. They love the toughness of Brooks.
Mm-hmm.
They love the competitiveness. They think that, and I kind of stayed back because I'm a Brooks fan.
I am too.
Because I feel like that Brooks, when we watch practices, when it's tough, we're tired, our legs hurt, we're fighting through practices. I think Brooks is going to show the consistency and the toughness.
He'll make a play
to fight through a month's worth of workouts.
Yeah.
I think if you had to say, I think Cooks, Ferguson, Brooks would be my disaster situation.
when they go to 3 receiver packages, though, when they go to a 3 receiver look, would it be Tolbert or Turpin?
It's going to be it's
I think Turpin's
Tolbert.
The biggest thing working against Turpin is I don't think the Cowboys feel like they can have Turpin and Cooks on the field at the same time from a size perspective.
I've brought that up before. But they've run packages with both Cooks and
sure. As change-ups, I just don't think they can consistently say, Kevontae Turpin, you are our 3rd receiver consistently on the field with Brandon Cooks.
Pro Football Focus, I was just thinking about how disastrous. I mean, that would be really disastrous to lose CeeDee Lamb or not have him, because I look at Pro Football Focus, and I know you kind of look at their stuff too. They had Dallas's running back room as the 32nd ranked running back room in the league.
Think
about how scary that is.
The job, by the way, we don't even have to say that one. That's a job that's open. We don't know what the running back, we don't know who's going to necessarily start in the running back room. They got a couple guys, Dowdle, Elliott, but I mean, we still don't know who the primary guy will be.
But I'm saying it in a way, and here's where all the Dak Prescott people will come in, and they'll go, well, gosh, he's a $60 million quarterback. He's got to make plays with who's ever out there. They'll do that. Mm-hmm. The people that defend Dak will say, my gosh, he has no running game. He has no receivers. What do you expect? And so to me, that's the things that you deal with now. But your scenario does not help me at all if CeeDee Lamb's not involved.
No,
I want to believe. I'm going to drive the Brooks train until proven wrong.
Yeah, and I think he's going to be to me. I think that Brooks is the guy that I feel really confident about just from a competitiveness standpoint and some of the stuff that he can do. You're listening to the Love the Star podcast, the Love the Stars and Odyssey podcast. You can find it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Brian, let's look at the defensive side of the ball now as we take a look at these starting jobs that are solidified and the ones that are open. There's a lot fewer jobs open to me on the defensive side of the ball. Looking at the defensive line, they're depth questions, obviously, overall. But in terms of starting positions, defensive line, we know the 2 starting edge rushers are Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence. Your 3 technique is going to be Oso Odigizua. Mm-hmm. Is Mozzie Smith, do you think he has that job by default right now, or is there competition there? Because I just don't know that do they have the bodies to create a competition right now?
Don't think they have the bodies, but I'm not going to discount Justin Rogers right now.
Is Mike Zimmer the type of coach that would, just as a hard and fast rule, say, I'm not putting a rookie 7th rounder in there to the starting lineup? Or is Zimmer the one who it's like, whoever's showing up for me is going to play, even if it's week 1 and you're a rookie 7th rounder?
Mike's attitude has always been, bring me whoever you want and I'll coach them. Mike will play who he feels like. This one might be at a complete necessity right now. I know, talking to some folks, that Mozzie's working his way back, but it's working his way back. It's not he'll be ready and this, that, and the other. He's working his way back. So when we get to Oxnard, I'll be really interested to see how maybe the first week we're there, Bob, we might not see Mozzie Smith.
Yeah.
We might not. And so with all that being said, now it's going to fall on others to have to pick up that slack. I personally don't think, Carl Davis, it's not one of my favorite players. Sure. I was on with Voch Lombardi today before our show. Mm-hmm. And, we were talking about the depth and maybe a little bit of the lack of the depth on the defensive line. And Voch made a good point. He said, we might be now for the Dallas Cowboys where most NFL teams are as backup defensive linemen. That they had a level of quality backup guys. And now you lose guys and it becomes, okay, now they're a little bit more in the middle with everybody else. And I think that's a good point, that we've, the Armstrongs and the Fowlers and the guys that have kind of moved on, we've kind of maybe now it's okay. This is what normal NFL backups look like, and I thought it was a good point.
No, I think
Justin Rogers. I think Justin Rogers is going to have a lot of eyeballs on him when we start this camp.
Assuming that they will most of the time be in nickel looks or two linebacker packages. Eric Kendricks obviously has one linebacker spot locked down. Would you feel comfortable saying any of the other linebackers have the other opening set in stone, or do you feel like that's an open competition depending on how Overshown plays come back from injury? Does Damone Clark step up? What are you getting from various guys? How do you handicap that second linebacker spot? Is that a job that's open?
I got a really good report on Overshown. Got a really good report on him. I've talked to people about Leofau and what he's done. Man, I hope, Robert, I'm not putting too much pressure on the kid. But everything, it reminds me very much of you and I, we cover the Texas Rangers here for our show.
Yep.
Wyatt Langford. Wyatt Langford was, we talked about him like he was the next.
Mike Trout was the comparison.
Yeah, we started talking about him like he was in the next, and it was probably unfair. Overshown has had this rise to where we think, where he's at. He got hurt, unfortunately. But Leofau, it sounds like to me, smart, tough, aware, all these things. People are just, when we had a chance to interview coaches and scouts, they couldn't say enough nice things. And that has continued through June. Like every time I ask about him, you know me, I know Mike Zimmer and some guys over there. They can't say enough nice things about this guy. And I hope that we're not putting too much pressure on him.
No, I mean, look, we had asked.
Positive. It's so positive about the instinctual football player that can make plays.
Yeah, I mean, this is when we had talked to one of their national scouts before the draft or after the draft, Ross Winchy. We had asked, like, hey, what was your inside Dallas, outside Dallas? What was your favorite trait you scouted all year? Mm-hmm. And he said Maris Leofau's play style was the one that stood out to him as the guy that, like that was the trait that he just absolutely loved. And he's somebody who the buzz about Leofau is similar to the buzz we started hearing about Overshown last year before Overshown got hurt. And so, I mean, I think that's an open job, though. That second linebacker spot. We'll see. I don't think Damone Clark is going to be handed anything. No, in fact, I think Damone Clark is kind of fighting for his future right now.
See, I think the thing with Damone Clark, and I'm an LSU guy, as everybody knows, and I've seen him play a bunch. He's physically gifted. Mm-hmm. He unfortunately had a terrible injury to his back, which set him back. I didn't mean to say it that way, but that's how it is.
I gotcha.
He doesn't have the instincts that the others have. And if you play a tick slow in the National Football League, you're going to have issues. You have to play with instincts. I agree with you. I think he's battling for his job right now. I think Mike is really big on, he's going to give everybody a chance, but Mike is really big on knowing and seeing and reacting. And this is where Damone Clark, this is where he's deficient.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to say, please don't cut this and say, oh, Broadus says Damone Clark's a dumb guy. Damone Clark and he's probably a smarter guy from the same university I went to, But as far as football stuff, having guys around him that read quick and can help him is a benefit for him.
Let's take a look now at the secondary. I think the safety spots are pretty much locked in right now. That's Hooker, that's Wilson. That's likely. I don't think those jobs are totally open. Diggs and Bland are your corners, but given that you're going to see some nickel looks, do you think that third corner spot, that nickel spot, is a lock for Jordan Lewis? So the whole secondary is locked in place, or do you think the nickel corner spot is a job that could potentially be open?
I think the job could be open. My whole again, talking to folks, getting ready for camp. We need to see what's really going on. You and I made a point the other day when they signed the kid from Ohio State,
Garyon Conley.
Like, will Diggs be ready? And it sounds like Diggs will be ready. It's taking a little bit longer than they thought. There needs to be some more time there, more time on task.
Yeah.
More intensity to get it done. It sounded, everything. Hey, okay, we're working, but it sounded like to me, talking to some folks, that there's some more ground that we need to cover here. Mm-hmm. To be, so the cornerback group, when we get to Oxnard, we keep saying this, will be interesting. Keep your eyes on who all's playing with Diggs not in the lineup.
Assuming Diggs is healthy, though, and Diggs and Bland are locked in, is Lewis's spot open, or do you think Lewis has that job?
Yeah, you asked the question, and I just brought up the Diggs thing. I'm sorry. I was gonna get
No, you're good. Do you think that Lewis has the nickel spot solidified, or is that an open competition?
I think it's an open competition. Lewis has been the guy. The 3 practices I've seen, Lewis has been that guy.
If Lewis were to lose that job, do you think it would be Bland moving inside and Carson taking the outside corner?
I think that you're right on to something. I'll tell you, we mentioned what Nahshon Wright's had some good practices that I saw. Also seen Eric Scott have some good practices. Yep. I think Eric Scott's pushing the rock up the hill, but he's pushing the rock up the hill. It ain't rolling back and rolling over him. I mean, he's shown some things. The receiving room, the corner room, toughest position to have to go through training camp. All these guys do is run. The whole practice, they run. And if you're not mentally tough, if you're not in good physical condition, you will fall by the wayside. You will see, that's one of the positions that in corners and safeties, you could pick your 10 guys just off practice, believe it or not, just of how mentally tough they are to get through all that.
Yeah.
So I expect the nickel corner to have some battle, and I expect whoever the other corner is behind Diggs to be a battle. And that guy might be the guy that, like, okay, we can, I think, like I said, I think Diggs will be ready, but I think there's some ground we have to cover here still.
You are listening to the Love the Star podcast. The Love the Star is an Odyssey podcast. You can find it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Brian, it is now time for our Dean Julia Love the Star mailbag. Yes, sir.
One more thing. We didn't mention the safeties. I know you're getting to the mailbag.
Did you think safeties were open? I didn't. I felt like...
I think there's a competition for Wilson's spot.
With who? Thomas?
Wanye Thomas.
Interesting. I think that I think it's going to be... I don't think we're entering camp that way. Could he wrestle it away and turn it into a competition? Yes. But I feel like entering camp, the safety spots are kind of locked. That's how I feel. But no, totally respect it and can see how that could be the case.
Yeah.
All right, Brian, it's time for our Dean Julia Love the Star mailbag. I got a couple questions for you here. We're going to run through before we wrap things up. First question here from Jess Haney. In terms of talent and not where they finished, just talent, which roster over the last 10 seasons from 2014 to 2023 do you feel was the closest to winning a Super Bowl for the Cowboys?
I love the 2016 team.
They were good.
I watched that team run the ball. I watched it be physical. I watched it at times play really good defense. I watched it win at Green Bay. I watched it win at Pittsburgh. I watched it win a lot of games. And they went toe-to-toe. Again, a rookie quarterback going toe-to-toe with Aaron Rodgers.
Mm-hmm.
That team had it lined up in order to win. I'll say this. I don't know if you're ever going to get a better chance than what the team in 2023 had. The
one that lost last year?
Yeah. Second overall seed. You find a way to win the division. You turn people over. You pass rush. Your run defense wasn't great. You didn't run the ball particularly great. You had your quarterback finish second in the MVP voting. That was you had one of the best wide receivers in the league.
Yeah, no,
you had one of the best pass rushers in the league.
I think when I look at it,
that might be the biggest disappointment of a team that I've seen.
So,
or the 2007. Well, you don't want to go all the way back to 7. You don't want to go back to Romo's teams, right? You didn't.
No. 2007 was a great team. Honestly, 2008 was a really underachieving team. That was a team that should have been better. The team that stands out to me when I say, okay, you're telling me it doesn't have anything to do with, where they finished or anything else, just pure talent across the board. I feel like I can make a really strong case for that 8-8 team in 2019. They were really, really talented. That was a team that had the offensive line was still intact. Your receivers were Gallup, who was really ascending. It was Gallup, Cooper, Randall Cobb. You had Schultz, Jarwin, Witten at the tight end group. Pollard was here. It was Zeke Elliott, who still hadn't been run down. Dak was playing at a high level. Defensive side, you had Sean Lee was still there, Jalen Smith, Leighton Vander Esch, the corners, Byron Jones was here.
Man, you say all that, and I don't have that feeling about that crew.
That was a team that underachieved to me. But if you look at it, they finished that season. It was the largest point differential ever. They were only
they were the only team. And they were 8-8
with that high of a point differential to not have a winning record.
Yeah.
Now they had different points.
Head coach was involved with that one. Yeah.
Yeah. The next one that I would go to though, the one that I think I would lean towards, it's kind of just, it's ice cream, as you say. What do you want? Do you want the solidified offensive line? Do you want that 2022 team that lost to San Francisco in that 19-10 playoff game or whatever it was? Sure. That group was, Schultz was really good that year. CD really exploded. Mm-hmm. Dak had just come off the Tampa Bay game, was playing some of his best football. Mm-hmm. You had Pollard, Zeke. Again, you had Micah, D-Law together, Bland and Diggs at corner. Curse was a really strong contributor for them at safety. You felt like the safety group was playing pretty well that year in 2022. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So for me, I think the two that stand out to me are 2022 and 2019, which is good because for you, it was 23 and 16. So there's some debate here as to what kind of a team you're looking at. But man, I think so consistently that 2019 team, when they started 3-0 and they were just dominating teams and really quickly got thrown off, and then they couldn't beat the Jets in New York, who were a bad football team, and it was just a messy year in general. That was a toxic year. That's what I'm concerned about with this year, to be honest, is that the same sort of instability and no guarantees about anybody's future creates the same sort of toxicity that it did that year. But man, even the pass rushing that you added, Michael Bennett, you had Robert Quinn, who got you 12 sacks, DeMarcus Lawrence. That was a good team. There were some really good players on that team. All right, next question here from Brandon. Which player do you hope has at least 6 sacks this season to replace Armstrong's rotational pass rush production? Marshawn Kneeland, Sam Williams, or Osa Odigizua?
Hope it's Sam Williams.
Yeah.
I hope it's Sam Williams because I need Sam Williams to play well. Honest with you, I need Tank Lawrence to have more than 6 sacks.
If I got you 6 sacks in year 1, though, from Marshawn Kneeland, given how raw everybody, but if you got that, then wouldn't that give you massive encouragement about his future?
I would absolutely be shocked because to me, I don't see the bend and I don't see the explosiveness to get to the corner and get around the corner. He may develop all these things. He is a physical point of attack player. I don't see a bendy player, and I hope I'm proven wrong about that. But if he gets 6 sacks, that is something I absolutely didn't expect.
I think they would really like for Sam Williams to be that guy.
Sam Williams needs to be a player for you.
And I think they'd like for it to click now. Marshawn Kneeland, they don't expect 6 sacks from him this year, I don't think. Odigizua, sure. I think they would. I think they believe that's within his reach. The only thing about Odigizua is you're talking about replacing edge pressure. To me, that's why it's got to come from Sam Williams.
See, the thing about Osa's got to figure out how to be better weeks 13, 14, 15,
he just plays so hard, I think.
He plays so hard, but at the end, he has nothing left.
Which guys a lot of times you'll have that happen earlier in careers that then they have to learn.
I think he'll figure it out. I'm not railroading the kid.
Sure.
I'm just saying, though, he's kind of got a little bit of a pattern of being great till week 12, week 13, and then all of a sudden we don't see him for a while.
Yeah, no, that's completely fair, and I think that's something that he would even embrace himself as something he's got to improve. All right, last question here, Brian. This one comes from Tony, all the way from Calgary. Listening to us in Calgary, says, hello from Calgary.
The Stampede.
The run game is, absolutely. The Stampeders, who a lot of people, when they see them, think you're wearing Boise State gear. The run game is important for this team's success. Last year, the run scheme left a lot to be desired, not just the player's performance. Is there any change you anticipate coming to that area? Brian, I mean, we didn't see the Mike McCarthy is still there on offense. Mm-hmm. Jeff Blasco is there as the running backs coach. He is the run game coordinator. That is kind of where things are. Brian Schottenheimer, I don't think you're going to see them make scheme tweaks. I think they felt like they had personnel issues in the trenches more than anything else, and that's what they had to go and address. Mm-hmm.
That running back room, I don't know if they're the 32nd worst group of the league, but I don't think they're in the top 15 either, So,
no, I mean,
I don't see Will McClay waiting till week 4 to figure this thing out. If it doesn't look right in training camp, they're going to make a move. There's teams you need to watch. Miami is a team you need to watch. There's teams, Texans, there's teams you can watch. Lions, teams you can watch.
Yeah, and I think one of the things you might see change a little bit is they might tweak. I had this conversation with somebody. That's what I was just looking through some old notes here. I would be interested to see if there was some, I think, discussion amongst the Cowboys about strategy in the red zone, the way they were running the ball in the red zone. And I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if one small schematic shift you might see is that they're not running as much wide zone when they get into the red zone. That might be a little bit of a tweak. But overall, I think they just feel like they needed to get better in the trenches. Yep. And they only had so many resources, and I think they had to figure out, do we want to invest in the block game or do we want to invest in the actual guy carrying the rock? And I think they decided they need to get the blockers. That does it for us here today on the Love the Star podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. For Brian Broaddus, I'm Bobby Belt. We will talk to you guys again later. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest updates. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.